What's up? We're back in the garage. Let's rock and roll. The title of this rock vlog is The Unknown Songs of Bruce Springsteen, and that's technically true. They're unknown, but they're not necessarily unknown to everyone. They're just not known to be Bruce Springsteen songs. Bruce Springsteen has a long and fascinating history, but today's rock and roll journey is going to start in 1973 with Springsteen's first album, Greetings from Asbury Park, New Jersey. The year was 1973 and a 24-year-old Bruce Springsteen had just been signed to Columbia Records and he had just recorded Greetings from Asbury Park. But Clive Davis gave him a call and said, "Hey Bruce, guess what? I don't think this record has a hit." So Bruce Springsteen went home and he wrote a little song called Blinded by the Light. Blinded by the light, a fun little acoustic rockin' jam. Blinded by the Light was released as the first single from that album, but it wasn't actually a hit for Bruce Springsteen. Bruce Springsteen wasn't one to wallow in defeat. Instead, he took that song and he sold it to a band from England called Manfred Mann's Earth Band. Manfred Mann loved the song, but they changed the lyrics a little bit. They made it a little more rock and roll driven. They added an organ and a Moog synthesizer. So the band turned around, released it themselves, and became a huge smash hit. Launched the band in the US and made their career. 5 years later, 1978, Bruce Springsteen's become a household name with an album called Born to Run. He's wondering how he's going to follow it up. He's in the studio recording Darkness on the Edge of Town, and he has this song he's tinkering with, trying to make work, called Because the Night. As much as he tries though, Because the Night just isn't working for him. But, as luck would have it, recording in the studio right next door is the Patti Smith Group. He gave the song to Patti Smith, she loved it, and she put it on the album she was working on called Easter. Patti Smith released Because the Night as the first single from Easter, and it became arguably Patti Smith's best known song. Because the night belonged to a lover. It became an international super hit, top 20 in the US and top 5 in the UK. Some say it's because of that song that Easter found its lasting mainstream success. Now this last song we're going to talk about almost became a huge hit for someone else, but at the 11th hour, Bruce Springsteen decided he was going to keep it for himself. Picture it in your head. It's 1979, and we're in Asbury Park, New Jersey, and Bruce Springsteen meets a young punk named Joey Ramone. Joey Ramone goes up to Bruce Springsteen, he's like, Hey Bruce, man, why don't you write this song for the Ramones, you know? So Bruce Springsteen goes home that night, and he writes up a little ditty called Hungry Heart. Everybody got a hungry heart. The Ramones are about to start tracking their new album Into the Century with Phil Spector, but Bruce Springsteen's manager slash producer John Landau is like, "Hey Bruce, hold on a second." John Landau, smart guy, he had noticed Blinded by the Light and Because the Night had been career makers for the bands they actually wound up going to. Even though Springsteen was a success, he hadn't broken the top 10 in the United States, so John Landau thought maybe Hungry Heart will do the trick. So Hungry Heart was the first single from Bruce Springsteen's album, The River. Old John Landau was right, the song shot straight up to number 5. Speaking of fives, The River sold 5 million copies. Springsteen would go on to be one of the biggest artists of all time, and since then tons of people have covered his material. We're talking about Johnny Cash, Tegan and Sara, Jerry Lee Lewis, Elvis Costello, Billy Bragg, David Bowie, John Mayer, and others. Well, I hope you had some fun today, hanging out in the garage and learning about the boss with me. I'm Tyler Evans, rock journalist. We'll see you on the B-side.
Murderer! Murderer! Murder! Murder anyone? Murder.
A grapefruit.